Maya Ackerman, welcome to Prevail.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
No, I'm very much looking forward to talking to you. You wrote this really smart, really interesting new book, which is called Creative Machines, Art, AI. No, AI, Art, and Us. I always want to put the art first. You put the AI first. And we're going to talk about the book in detail. But before we go there, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, because what's interesting to me about your approach is that you're coming at it from a different angle than I think I at least imagine people coming at computer science. So, there's a correlation between math and music, but I think practicing the piano for hours and hours and hours when you're a kid doesn't necessarily, in my mind, equate to I'm going to go into computer science and AI now. So, how did you happen upon the career path?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the great question. My early life was really this heavy intermixing of wanting to be an artist in different forms, a musician, really, really feeling pulled towards that. And sort of through a sequence of unusual events, ending up down the computer science path, which I fell in love with for completely different reasons initially. It felt kind of steady, predictable. There was something magical about putting in code and having the computer actually do it. But I think I was searching all the way into my early 30s until I ran across Harold Cohen, the maker of a system called Aaron. And just watching that man on stage arguing with himself whether his AI was creative, that's it. I was sold in 2015.
It's you got in early, which is interesting. And I have to say the argument that you make and talking about that piece of the book has made me open my mind a lot to this topic. So but before you tell, I was really moved by the story in the book that you tell where you had the piano and you were playing the piano every day when you were like, how old were you? A teenager, or even younger than that?
No, I
And
started
then
playing around age 8. Yeah.
yeah, and then you moved and then you had to leave the piano behind. And that would be terrible. I had a piano growing up that I played all the time, and it would be horrible to have that happen. So I was thinking about it this morning. Like, I wonder how much the AI piece comes from that singular experience because of how portable it is. Like, if it was a laptop, you just bring it with you, but grand piano, you can't. I don't know. It's just a thought that occurred to me. Do you think that that specific thing that happened to you informs what you're doing now?
I think so, very much. It was so painful to lose the piano, to lose that form of self expression, especially for a child. That when I finally was able to get back into music already as a young adult, buy my own instrument, start to sing, try to write my own music, the idea of helping myself and ultimately helping others to be more expressive, this very, very deeply human approach at it all, AI as a vehicle towards expressing human emotions, was always the real motivation.
Which is an interesting way, at least for me, and a novel way for me to look at what it is. So when I found out about your book, I was looking at it and I'm like, art and AI. Come on now. I was skeptical because I'm a novelist, or I was once upon a time, and my feelings about the generative AI are always like, like caveman stuff. I guess like, oh no, they're coming to take me away. They're gonna, I'm gonna be replaced by the computers and all of that. But then I thought maybe I'm just being, reflexively like the old man shouting for the kids to get off my lawn and stuff like that, because I can't sit here and talk to you for half an hour denouncing AI. And then right after this is over, I'm going to get a really good transcript of our conversation that's completely generated by AI, like really good, So it's not like AI is inherently evil, like, or good or anything. It's like any technology. It is completely reliant on who's using it and for what. But I think part of it is just the two letters AI together conjure up something in me. And I think I'm speaking for a lot of people. So start with something really, really basic. So what is AI in a very, very rudimentary way? What is a creative machine? Why are you not afraid of it? And why should I not be?
I'm not exactly an AI optimist, if I'm completely honest.
Okay.
I love AI the way that parents love their children, you know? I love it a lot. I got into it before it was popular. I got
Mm-hmm.
it when it's me and my friends and my colleagues are building these creative machines and imagining a world where we get to choose a path on how these creative machines engage with the world. And I know, not in a kind of abstract, imaginative way. I know for a fact the incredible stuff that these machines can do for humans. And some of it is being played out and some of it is not yet. But I also see what happens when this incredibly powerful, beautiful technology gets into the wrong hands. And I kind of watch that and experience that as well. So I'm kind of two minds about it. I'm not here to convince the audience that everything is peachy. In fact, I want people to kind of have slightly more open eyes about it, about what's broken, and to see that a little bit more accurately, but also more accurately see the opportunities. So AI, sorry, I just want to quickly actually answer your question, is having machines that have some form of real intelligence, which is not necessarily like our own.
Okay. Is an AI different than a creative machine or not?
It could be. In humans, sometimes we have intelligence that overlaps with creativity, and sometimes you have intelligence that's not creative, but it's still legitimately intelligent. So it's, in fact, with some of the more popular tools recently, like LLMs, you have more intelligence than creativity.
Okay. See, this is all interesting. This is not stuff that I've thought about a lot. So it was fun to read your book and to kind of like have to think about it, these things in these terms that I'm not used to thinking about them in. Like one of the most interesting parts of the book, you were talking about, what is it? Anthropocentrism. Is that the right word?
Oh,
Where,
anthropocentrism.
so, which is the idea that everything is very much, the humans are at the center of everything and at the center of, of the creative process. And as you point out in the book, that's actually not true. We're not the center of the creative process. Lots of things are creative. Animals are creative. Mike, I have 3 cats, each of them creative in their own ways. Uh, and even as you recount, like in the days of old in antiquity, until very recently, when people had moments of creative insight and inspiration, they attributed it to the muses, to something divine, to divine inspiration. And then I was really glad that you brought up the Paul McCartney story because that's something that I say a lot. Like, Paul McCartney just wakes up one morning and the melody for Yesterday is in his head, which is fucking ridiculous, right? Like, how can you do that? Did he come up with the melody, or is he merely a vessel through which this very, very ancient thing comes from him from some other universe or something like that? I don't know. It's an interesting thing to talk about. But how does this work in terms of AI? Tell people, because I think this is an interesting part of the book, without giving too much away.
How does creativity, the whole concept of creativity is so core to our humanity. There's something really interesting about the human species that I've been thinking about a lot, and that's our desire to make sure that we stay special, or somehow afraid to not be special enough. So we want to be the only thing in the universe that is intelligent, conscious in the full sense, and creative. Somehow creativity made it onto that list. And the truth is that that's just not the case, right? Us wanting to be the only creative beings doesn't make us the only creative beings. And this closing our eyes to the fact that machines are creative, in one breath being terrified that they're going to replace us and there'll be no more human art, and another breath, my favorite nonsense, oh, it's just a predictive algorithm, as if we're not. It doesn't help. It doesn't help. Let's face reality. Let's admit the truth, even if it hurts, so that we can intentionally create the future we actually want to live in.
Yeah. And that's another thing that I like about the book is that you are realistic about it, but you're very hopeful about it. You could feel it in the writing where you believe in this thing, very much. And it made me more open-minded about it, which is,
Oh, thank you.
I think that's the point of the book. So you did, what it was supposed to do, because I was very resistant at first, but you did win me over, at least to thinking about it in new ways, because AI is being used now, like in medical stuff in these incredible ways, and in GPS and directions and, transcripts as discussed, which when I got this program, which we're using, and it has the transcripts and the other one didn't, it was like, life changing for me in terms of saving my time and all that.
Can I
Yeah.
just comment on this? There's something
Hmm.
that you said earlier that I thought was really interesting. I think because we appreciate one form of AI doesn't give us any obligation to appreciate the other types. I think
Mm.
we have the absolute right and even obligation to be discerning about it, to be like, we want that, we don't want that.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And something else that you talk about here, I'm going to read a little passage that I liked.
Thank you.
Let's see. Let me find it. About AI, you say this reveals something critical. AI isn't merely a mirror of our world. Rather, it reflects our beliefs about the world. If we collectively assume that a lawyer is a man, then the AI will reinforce that assumption, even if statistically the profession is no longer male dominated. AI doesn't reflect reality, it reflects us. And that was really interesting. This isn't a part you talk about brilliance bias, which I'd never heard of, and which you did studies on this, looking at how basically concluding that these systems are inherently sexist and racist, and if not anti-Semitic, at least using stereotypes of different cultures and informing that. Which I found I barely ever use this stuff, but I use Chat GP whatever one time, and I found I was like, oh, yep, this is horribly racist because I said, show me a picture of prisoners on the side of the road in front of the, I forget what we were doing, and it showed the prisoners, and every one of them was black, and I'm like, okay, this is a racist thing. This is bad. But you say, and I think this is important because it piggybacks on what you just said, we can use AI to become an ally in the pursuit of fairness and equality, which I think is true. And my question is how? Because a significant piece of tech right now is in the hands of basically an apartheid Nazi. So, I mean, Elon Musk took Grok, which seems to be a pretty good AI, and tried to make it more racist and anti Semitic. So, where do you think this is all going with, based on the studies that you did? Where are we headed now? What do you see?
Oh, there is so much to unpack. There's the first of all, the AIs, and not all of them, but some of them are very blatantly anti-Semitic. Just wanted to clarify
Okay. Yeah.
that critical point. I think that there's a lot of misconceptions around when it comes to bias in AI. There is this tendency to blame the developers, assuming that the AI reflects their racism and sexism and all the other isms. No, it reflects Western biases. And then there is another absurd idea of somehow making the AI some kind of utopian thing,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that even means, because we don't agree with each other on what a utopia would be, so that it would reflect some kind of alternate reality to us. And I think a better approach in the meantime, at least for now, is to just have the AI, instead of reflecting the biases of Western consciousness, to more accurately mirror the world as a whole. So when you ask for a picture of a brilliant woman, you don't get a woman that looks like a real woman genius. If you actually look at pictures of genius women in history and what the AI generates, there's like no relationship between how they look. And the same thing with like Jewish holidays and a lot of other sort of non-Western cultures where it's not that we don't know what things look like, it's that the AI represents some weird Western misconceptions. Like you ask for sufgania, which is a very common Jewish holiday food for Hanukkah, and you get bagels, right? It's like some weird Western Jewish food equals bagels. But this is relatively innocuous. There is stuff that's really ugly, really sort
Sure.
of horrible portrayals of different peoples. So I think the first step is just to do things more honestly, which for some reason is not something that you hear people asking for.
Yeah.
Just do it more accurately. This would be a massive improvement.
Yeah. Yeah. You talk about something that you call the Trojan horse of creativity, which is basically, and you had some experience with this because you founded Wave AI a while ago now. So you're really a pioneer in this. And I'm sure just watched just like, oh my God, this is really exploding in ways that you probably didn't quite imagine. But now the money people are gathering around and they want to make more money. And I saw you on some other podcast talking about this. The idea that everything that somebody was asking you, what about like the idea that AI can make movies and write books and write music without humans at all. So the idea that they can replace humans, and you were saying that, well, that's not what we want. That's what the people with the money want. So that's what gets developed. So, you know, I look at the world now and I just see, the income inequality going haywire. And the people that have the most money tend to be these, involved in technology and almost comically ill suited to be arbiters of humanity's future. Like, I can't, I don't like, well, I don't know if he's a friend of yours, but Sam Altman looks to me like I can't, I don't trust that guy at all. Like, he looks like he stepped out of central casting, and we're all doomed. And Musk, we've seen what he's all about, unfortunately. So, are we wrong to be afraid of this, and what can we do to stop it?
We're extremely correct to be afraid of this. And it was really from being part of Wave AI that I appreciated how correct the general public sentiment is. We released our products, which were always designed to help people, but we would still sort of get this kind of splash of people's fears. And at first I just felt like it was so misplaced. But then the more I'd listen to people's fears and the more I'd look at what's going on in industry, especially since late 2022, it's like, no, the people feel what's happening. So I think the most difficult formative experience in my adult life was when in late 2022, when Gen AI became hot, investors went from telling me that, effectively generative AI is never going to happen, stop talking nonsense, to being able to get meetings with everybody. And I have so much respect for the venture ecosystem. So much of it is, there's really, they've accomplished so much. There's so much that works about it. But on sort of the moral, ethical front, what I was confronted with was this request that I take our technology and build it in a direction to replace musicians. And I was never going to do that, right? But of course, they easily found other people who were willing to do that. And so that's the world we look at, where investors see, not all of them, just kind of the more powerful ones tend to be in this direction. They see this opportunity, they see these brilliant machines, and they want to apply it in a very specific way. So it's an uphill battle.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. And this is another thing you write in the book here about, I'm thinking about compensation now, right? Because if you're taking things or they're using things in their data sets, as you explain in the book, what these things really do is just suck up all this data because they need to study the data in order to, be more human, or whatever word you want to use. And, when they first started looking at the novels and the books and stuff like that, I went to check. I think the Atlantic is the one that had the database going, or one of those publications. And I put my name in, and I have to say that when my books popped up, I felt very included. I,
That's interesting.
I wasn't like, give me my money. I was like, oh, it's so nice that they thought of me, you know?
You're part of the collective consciousness.
Yeah, I should be, and I am. But here, you write this. This is the truth is that if every creator were properly compensated, the economics of large-scale generative AI would collapse. The reason these models work is because they're trained on massive data sets, tens of millions of examples, often more. If each piece of content cost even $100, hardly a great value for a piece of art or music, the bill would reach hundreds of millions, possibly billions, before even accounting for the actual model training, staffing, and operations. Only the richest corporations or countries could afford to play. And I'm like, yeah, and? I don't know. I really honestly don't know how I feel about it, because it's like ethically, yeah, they're taking the writing, but it's not like they're using just mine to do something. And don't I want, like, I was joking before a little bit, but I did feel that way. But don't they want to have as broad a number of input as possible to be able to, somehow, even if it's possible to do so, to replicate all of humanity, you can't just have Shakespeare in there, say, because nobody talks like that anymore. You know what I mean? It has to be. I don't know. Ethically, I don't know how I feel about it. I'm kind of puzzled by it. You know what I'm getting at?
Let's see if we can. Let's see if we can figure this out together on the call.
Okay, good.
The reason that I wrote this, or this passage, is in response to this massive focus on "don't use my data." That's the
Hmm.
reason I wrote this, right?
Right.
Don't use my data, or if you use it, compensate me well, right? And what's happening in reality is that the only people who are financially benefiting from this line of thought are the rights holders. So right
Yes.
aggregates for music, for art, for books, and most of the time the creators don't make a penny. Okay, so my point there is that even though perhaps there is validity in that argument, we need to be careful of how much energy we put down that direction, and at the expense of perhaps focusing on other things when there are limits to how successful we can be in this direction. Even if every creator makes $3, which would be a massive accomplishment, I really don't think that's going to make it can't even go out for lunch with this. I mean, it
Yeah.
doesn't make a
Yeah.
difference in some sense. Okay, so what does matter? What you said, and I'm so glad to hear that because that doesn't come across often enough in these conversations, is that like, okay, I mean, use my data. It's going to be part of this massive data set. I don't mind contributing to humanity's knowledge base in this sense. I don't mind contributing to creating this awesome collective consciousness brain, which is great, which is really, really good to hear. The only case that I feel needs to be carved out is you probably don't want ChatGPT or any other system to explicitly allow people to imitate you specifically.
Right. Right.
So that needs to be carved out. And luckily, we are starting to see motion in this direction. So yeah, I actually feel exactly the same way. Use all my stuff to become smarter in an abstract general sense. Don't imitate me without having a very, very explicit contract with me. And also don't force me into that situation if I don't want it, right? So in that sense, we need to sort of educate the public on what it is that we should even be arguing for instead of just saying, don't use my data as sort of our only lever.
That's a really good point. Yeah. I think see, we did it. We worked it out. Um, no, but it's a good point. There's more to it than that. Like I was talking about Altman before, and I've been out on him since the whole Scarlett Johansson thing when he was like, I want to use your voice. And she was like, no. And then he kind of did it anyway in this weird
Oh
workaround
my
way.
God, that whole thing.
Yeah, it was really, that's like creepy with a capital C. So, I mean, but now he's launched this week. There's a new app called Sora,
Yeah, I'm
which
familiar with it.
I don't know. It seems to me, based on what I've read about it, is basically a deep fake app. And, there's literally a movie, Mountainhead, talking about how this is a terrible idea and what's going to happen, which I guess Sam didn't see. So, but going back to the idea, you were saying we don't want it to imitate us specifically without compensation. That's probably the right line to draw. But how can that be policed and how will it be policed? Because we have a geriatric Congress that half of these people don't even know how to use a smartphone, I think, let alone understand what this is and what it means. You have, the president is clearly just going to do whatever Musk and Thiel tell him to do. And then the moderators of this world are these, again, these tech bro guys that seem like they would rather have all of us die so they can go to Mars, which doesn't seem like maybe the best policing system. So, like, if you were in charge of it, how would you suggest that we police this?
Okay. It can feel very hopeless for very good reason, right? The general population, despite the fact that we technically have a democracy in some sense, is not that powerful, which is scary. But I think that there is a lot of power in consumers as a whole. As a whole,
Mm-hmm.
we have some kind of collective power. And right now, our collective power is being directed by the rights holders. The right holders kind of took our collective power and said the way that you use it to make AI good is to make sure your data is treated properly, right? They sort of manipulated us into this one path. And what we need is to take our collective power and with it demand things that actually are more valuable for us than making sure that these right holders stay wealthy.
Yeah.
whereas we might make a few cents here and there. Wow, how amazing. So we should be doing things. And then there is some precedent in Europe now demanding that our likeness, our voice, our creativity, our kind of unique creative voice are protected, which maybe won't happen with this administration. There are certain limitations that we have at the moment, but ultimately I think it's a very reasonable thing, and we're starting to see a precedent for it. And the other thing that I think we should be demanding very, very loudly is saying what we want these companies to build and what we don't want them to build.
Yeah.
So saying, don't build stuff that replaces artists. We have the right to say words like this. Build
Hmm.
stuff that elevates us. There is nothing that prevents us from having this narrative, and there is nothing that prevents those companies, other than greed, misdirected greed, by the way, from following that kind of thing. So it's, I think, empowering people to see things more clearly and make demands that are more aligned with human wellness is a sort of power that we could be leveraging more.
I like that answer. That's a very good answer. Thank you for that. And and yeah, you're right. It's a thing that can be used for great good, which I think you figured out very early. Let's talk about that now at the end, because one of the kind of distinctions that you're trying to make is, and the arguments in the book is that AI can be used as a tool like any other tool. I said before, you could use AI or you have a piano. They're both tools that you're using to express your art. Ultimately, it's not a piano doesn't replace a human. It's just a tool that the human uses to make music. So why should AI be any different in a sense? And you've gone ahead and done, you've worked in this regard. So talk a little bit about, how do you pronounce it? Is it Alicia? Alicia? How do you say it?
The original system was Alicia, and then we built Lyric Studio, and that kind of became our bread and butter.
Okay, but I'm pronouncing it right, Alicia.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So talk about that a little bit, because I think anybody watching this that is thinking about, that is a creative person, might want to try this stuff, because it's my wife is a musician. She's a singer songwriter. I think she would really be able to use this in fantastic ways. So talk a little bit about that, like how you were able to kind of merge your two sides, I guess, and create this thing.
Sure. So I just want to briefly comment: tool versus not tool.
Okay.
It's tricky. It's complicated. There's this. I'm going to give you two different answers here. Two different parts of the question. There's this terrible story about horses and how
Mm.
technological innovation is good for horses. It used to be that horses would go around in a circle over and over again as part of farm work, and to break apart various seeds and such. And then technology improved, and farm work got replaced by machines, and so horses got to walk around and enjoy the views of town by being used as transportation. And then came cars, and millions of horses got slaughtered because they weren't needed anymore. So it's a horrible story, right? It's much more gruesome than I would like, but it makes an important point that just because so far better technology led to more better human work, we can't assume that it's going to be the same, right? There's a level of critical assessment of the current situation that needs to happen. That being said, I think that there is incredible opportunity in elevating human capability with AI. Like with a powerful guru who chooses to use their brilliance to elevate people. And not elevate people to be as smart as AI. That's ridiculous. To elevate people to be beyond what AI is, beyond what human is right now. Human plus AI can be an insanely powerful combination. And so this is back in 2016. We built the early version of Alicia. It was called Alicia back then.
Okay.
I would give it, so now I'm kind of answering the second half in a row here. You would give it lyrics like, I love the boats on the bay. And it would give you different ways to sing it, like, I love the boats on the bay. Or, I love the boats on the bay. Right? There are so many ways you can sing it that I couldn't see. And it kind of blew up the possibilities for me. And that's when I saw how AI can help people see further without replacing them, by just giving this bitwise help in the creative process. It really transformed how I wrote music. And kind of the whole journey started from there, accumulating in Lyric Studio, which ended up serving millions of people, but it's entirely designed to elevate people to the point where people become better pen and paper songwriters with Lyric Studio.
Yeah, which is which is quite an accomplishment, I have to say, because it flies in the face of what people like me generally think of what AI is, and also what these asshole billionaires want. So good on you for creating something useful for artists. So when I think about the AI, also Chat GPT and all this stuff, I think about like basically bored people trying to make these these little clips of Trump as a baby or whatever, and JD Vance dancing and playing drums, and they're fine, they're amusing, but they're not like useful in any societal way relative to the amount of energy that they use, because my understanding is that it takes an awful lot of energy to power these computers and also the crypto stuff. I know it's different, but it's the same. So we're generating massive amounts of energy that we require, which is accelerating climate change. So how do we reconcile that? What do we do about it? Do we have to have new sources of energy? Do we have to pivot in some way? I feel like the Musk Teal contingent doesn't really care, and they're accelerationists, and they think that humans are all going to die anyway, and they just want to be around out of the rubble so they can, I don't know, go to Mars, or I don't really understand their brains, but because it seems like something that's just going to speed up the already accelerated path towards the Earth being uninhabitable. So just so we end on something sunshiny and lovely,
Yeah, it's amazing how we're building multiple copies of LLM, which are these ginormous brains, and we're hurting the planet in the process. But it's completely unsurprising, given that we're hurting the planet just beforehand as well, right? Like
yeah,
destroying our oceans, eliminating entire species one after the other. Humanity as a whole, we don't have our stuff together. It's really, really sad. I really don't think that we need to solve anything in some sense other than the problems that we ourselves create. The planet is wonderful. Nature is wonderful. Life is amazing. Nothing we create with AI is going to compete with that. And hurting our natural world in the name of an AI at such a scale, it's an absurdity, just kind of revealing our own spiritual emptiness, our loneliness, our inability to connect with nature, which is, I don't know, I think a bigger source of joy than anything. So it's really sad. It's really sad to see those same forces that have been impacting our economy, the way our world works, amplifying the negative side of sort of these tendencies with the help of AI. Teeny tiny AI models that don't leave any footprint can be used to elevate humans. Gosh, if we already built one enormous brain, we can all be using that one. We don't have to build 10 copies of it so that each billionaire could have their own. There are ways to be thoughtful about it. So, I mean, really, a really big part of the book is to sort of separate human activity from AI capabilities and help people see where else AI could take us and what are some of the positive trends, and sort of correctly help people understand where our fears are legitimately coming from so that we can hopefully push things more in a positive direction. But I'm completely with you. Like, destroying stuff that's the most wonderful about life in the name of AI is a special kind of dysfunction.
yeah, yeah. On the other hand, I mean, Trump as a baby is pretty funny, so we have to,
Those
it's
memes,
not
I
actually.
don't know if those memes are really bothering me so much, right? But it's sort of a lack of imagination to apply AI to things like job replacement and memes. It's like, can you come up with something new? Can you look in a new direction? Can you look at the research literature that we've been doing for decades to see a new direction with this new technology?
Yeah. And use it in something more serious, like, or more, I don't want to say productive, more beneficial, I guess, to humanity. Or it reminds me now, like, I started out, my first job out of college was in 1995, and the web was still pretty new then, at least in the, not for you probably, but in the popular sense. So one of my jobs was people would come to the agency and I would show them how, what a web page looked like. But there wasn't yet, like, I think Google wasn't there, and it wasn't organized. You had to like type stuff in, and websites just existed because they could, and nobody figured out how best to use the technology yet. And then of course they did. So I feel like we're in that space now where people are playing around, but they haven't quite figured it out. And I hope that there are more people like you in charge of these things, policing them and thinking them through, than people like, Musk and Thiel and whoever else that it just seems to be greedy, human people.
Yeah, kind of like looking at us from a distance, and we become kind of insignificant to them. We become another resource to exploit. You can really feel it. You can feel it in the air that humans are being kind of treated as the same way that animals and nature gets treated. The way that I like to look at it, just as we head towards the end here, is that humanity has reached less than 10% of its capacity, and we see that in psychedelic research. The human brain on psychedelics can create images better and faster than Midjourney. So a lot of stuff that amazes us in technology is stuff that our brain is actually capable of, but just we can't necessarily access with
Mm.
with the way that we're currently utilizing our brains. And I think that AI can be used to make humans permanently brighter, permanently more intelligent. It just needs to be directed in the right way. So I think it's actually has the potential to be an incredibly positive thing if we dare to believe if we dare to believe in humans instead of worshiping the AI.
Well said. Well said. That's a perfect way to end. So I'm not even gonna go from there. Are you on social media at all? Because it looks like you're not, but are you? Can people find you anywhere if they want to follow you?
LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn.
You're a LinkedIn, yeah. And okay, so once again, your book is called Creative Machines, AI, Art, and Us, and it comes out on October the 14th, which may be today as you people are watching this, if I time it right. We're recording it on, I think what's today, the 4th of October. It doesn't matter. It's not that far in the past from that date. So Maya Ackerman, thanks so much for joining me today. Great to talk to you.
Thanks so much for having me. It was a blast.